Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and we are live. We've been hanging out. It's Adon's birthday almost. Tonight is his birthday, so we're celebrating. We're going to be doing this till midnight so we can all sing. I'm so excited. Also got Steph, and my buddy Shannon's back. So excited to see you, Shannon. Welcome back to the show. We are all here, and we're talking, we're hanging out, but I wanted to get to the main event of tonight's topic, which is the fact that Chris Terrio, the Justice League writer, BVS, Batman v Superman writer, Argo writer, and Rise of Skywalker writer Chris Terrio is super pissed off, guys. The Argo Oscar winner is tired of being hated by the haters, and he despises what happened to his DC films too. So I want to go through this with you guys because there's a lot of little interesting tidbits and things that he unleashes in this piece that I wanted to make sure we could go through. Now, before we even get to it, I liked Argo. Okay, so let's be positive first. He won an Oscar for Argo. Argo was I thought a really well done film, but that's where his good films stop. He's literally only made a few films: Argo, BVS, Dawn of Superman, Dawn of Justice League, Rise of Skywalker, and then the Snyder Cut. That's what this guy has written. So I'm sorry, I have a problem with this guy because, dude, your movies suck. It's like 1 out of 5. Well, how many am I going to count? I guess I count one version of Justice League. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dude, come on. You can't come out this cocky. Just because you won an Oscar for Argo, you did BVS, you did Justice League. All right, fine. Snyder Cut, whatever it is, it's still not. It's not game-changing, crazy amazingness. But you also did Rise of Skywalker. So it wasn't even just like you messed up DC. You messed up Star Wars too. So I'm going in a little hot because I'm frustrated. This guy, like, what on earth are you going to come in and say it's going to change your mind? Maybe he will. But let's see. And someone even saying, don't give Terrio Argo. It's true. I bet you others were involved in Argo. Affleck, etc., who probably wrote. Who else? Was it just him? Was it solo him?
I thought Affleck was leading it. That's how it was led. He was directing it, starring it, and co-writing it.
He wrote the screenplay, and it's based off of the... so yeah, he's the sole person on that screenplay. So, I mean, let's not be that mean. I'll give him Argo. Got an Oscar for Argo. Good for him. And that put him in the camp. And so when he won the Argo, which was 2012, that's when they basically brought him in to do BVS because they wanted to basically please Affleck to try and figure this out. All right, so let's go through this article, shall we?
Oh, I'm gonna ask one thing before you.
Yeah, go for it.
Because did you not do a video about like the secret, how Rise of Skywalker was supposed to be screen? Wasn't he the guy?
That was what?
No, that was Colin Trevorrow.
Trevorrow was supposed to be the guy. Yeah, Trevorrow wrote the version, and then J.J. Abrams came in and brought in Terrio to do Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, no, he wrote the version that was out there.
I was about to defend him. I take it back.
Nope. No, exactly. Look, let's see. Maybe he'll sway us. Let's go in a little open, more minded. I did like Argo. Okay, so I see your super chats coming in. I'll get to them in a few, but let's get since I just started this clipping. Let's get a little bit through this, and then we'll come connect. But keep your chats coming. I'll report on them in a second. But here we go. He's not pulling any more punches. 5 years of the Oscar winner screenwriter has kept his mouth shut about his work on DC films Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League. Even as scorn from critics and fans exacerbated already painful behind-the-scenes memory. Worst of all, he agreed with their complaints. He described the films that Warner Bros. Released in theaters as incoherent misfires, undermined by corporate meddling, poor franchise planning, and tone-deaf decisions that prioritized costly VFX sequences over coherent storytelling. Terrio believes Zack Snyder's director's cuts of both are much stronger, if still imperfect movies. I'm glad he's at least not completely delusional, because even if you fixed them, the ultimate cut still is an imperfect movie, let's be honest, a BVS. Overall, a vindication of their work together. In their exclusive, wide-ranging interview, he says the Snyder Cut, recently released as a 4-hour event, righted a kind of cinematic wrong. The 2017 theatrical cut was an act of vandalism, he says. Zack may be too much of a gentleman to say that, I don't buy it. But I'm not. And so the studio did not provide comments. All right, so here's where it comes in. So apparently he came in. I think the studio brought me in to appease Ben Affleck because they thought, okay, well, they have this movie star who's reluctant about doing this, so why don't we bring in his guy? And he was frank about trying to make sense of the film's warring heroes, turning their fight into a metaphor for a divided America, while attempting to fix elements he too found nonsensical or offensive. Now, you got to remember, he's coming in on Snyder's script. keep that in mind as you're reading this, because it's unclear if some of the stuff he's bashing is actually Snyder's stuff that he's actually bashing. So help me in the chat too if you want to, if anybody knows. So anyway, so here we go. So if you took 30 minutes out of Argo, as they were from Batman Superman, it would make 0 sense at all. Critics would have said, what a lazy screenplay because the characters don't have motivation. It's not coherent, Terrio said. And I would agree with them. Even the title, BVS Dawn of Justice, was a disaster, he said. That primed audiences to roll their eyes at the film well before its release. Facts. But I think it was Uche who was defending the title because Zach wanted it to be like a legal battle. He's like, this wasn't a fight. This was more about a BVS, like the legal fight for the justice. Like Snyder fans are defending that title. So to hear Terrio call it out, I think that title was Zach's. Let's see if he reveals that. But first, I'm so confused because he's going to get into this more. I ripped through this before, but this idea.
If they were going for like the legal route, like were they trying to? What kind of villains would they have brought in for
the legal version? I don't know. I think if you meant like tonally, he didn't want it to be a brawl. He wanted it to be more of like a. I forget what the reason was, but all I know is he was defending it in a very weird tonally way. So
it would make sense to have Lex Luthor in there, right? Because he's an intellectual villain,
right? More methodical, which is what they're. I think Uche, who's talked to Zach, was trying to imply. So all I'm trying to prove is the title sucks, but I think the title was Zach's. It reads like Zach's when you see all his chapters and Snyder Cut, etc. else. But this idea of if you took 30 minutes out of Argo, and then if you take 30, like, dude, how long do they expect their movies to be? Like these guys are writing like, I expect all of my movies to be 3-4 hour movies. It's like, no, dude, Hollywood doesn't work that way. Now it might now in this age of streaming. But when because he's going to come back to this idea of like, well, sure, if you took 30 minutes out, but why did you write it so long? Why didn't you figure out a way to make it tighter, to make it what traditional movie length is? To me, that's a fault of the screenwriter because you're writing in excess versus writing what's realistically going to get approved by the studio. If you're going to write for franchises, you're going to write for a studio, then learn that you're going to have to cut 30 pages additionally out. So don't overwrite it because it's not a miniseries. It's a friggin' popcorn movie for a studio to make its money back. You know what the hell it is. In 2017, that's what Justice League and before it, BVS was supposed to be. So he's going to talk more about it, but I'm already sort of peeved at that because it's like, well, what do you expect? He helped. He talks about BVS. He talks about hope that Justice League will be better. After watching Whedon's film, Terrio was so disgusted he explored taking his name off the film. Especially because they got rid of Ray Fisher. All right, so let me get. There's a lot. Let's get to the thing. Can you point to something? Here we go. The first question that's asked. I'm happy and relieved that all these thousands of artists and craftspeople all over the world finally can have their work seen by the public. The question was. The public screenwriter is finally opening up how all went wrong in the first base. Here it is. Zack Snyder's film is now out in the world. How do you feel about it? I'm happy and relieved that so many thousands of artists and craftspeople over the world finally can have their work seen by the public, and all the work that Zack and the actors put into it now can be seen. It's a gift that we got from HBO Max because it wouldn't have been possible a few years ago. Can you point to something specific that you're glad gets a showcase? Willem Dafoe's performance in the Aquaman story. I don't even remember it, guys. Do you? It was like a quick blip in the movie, but that's what was worth it. Iris West, it was a cool action sequence. What did she really do? Most essentially, Ray Fisher's performance as Cyborg. It's always been the heart of the film to me. Just meant so much to me personally because so much of my heart and life was put into that story. That is the thing about this version of Justice League, that none of it was done cynically or as a money grab or an attempt to sell Happy Meal toys. It was really personal for me and for Zach and for many of the actors. The motivation here is clearly like that. It's so clear why Zach and Chris are behind Ray Fisher and why the three of them, to me, were clearly working together because that part of the movie got cut. Is it true that you were banned from the Justice League set? I wouldn't say I was banned. The studio attitude was, well, we'll take it from here. I was frankly shocked when I saw the Snyder Cut and how much of the original script was shot. With some of the small revisions, they shot the script, and I understand that sometimes that was a battle for Zach. How did you feel about the version that Joss Whedon assembled after Zack left? When those personal touches were removed from the film in the 2017 version, I was silent because I couldn't really say anything. But of course it hurt. All that remained was a dinosaur skeleton of what had been a great lumbering beast. It might have been a big unruly beast, and obviously it's 4 hours, and the movie is a maximalist, and it's operatic, and sure, it's a little crazy, but I think the movie is crazy in the best way. How is he going to release a 4-hour movie, guys? What? Does anyone make sense of that?
I'm trying to make sense of this article. It's boiling down to this. Screenwriter wrote a script for a film, and studios got it, and they edited it, and they cut it down, and he's peeved off.
Correct. He's pissed off.
Okay, I can say pissed off. Cool. And he's pissed off. And?
Exactly.
Doesn't that happen to like a zillion
every writer in
screenwriters?
Hollywood?
What makes this dude any different or special to be trying to kind of blast the studio in a freaking Vanity Fair article? I don't get it. It's just the way of Hollywood, dude. Suck it up or choose a different freaking job, dude. Like, what?
Hey, man, like the amount of money he's paid to do this job while still complaining about his job is infuriating to me. Like, he gets paid well to sit there and write dialogue for a fictional superhero character. Regardless of what happens, like, dude, amen, suck it up and deal with it. That's how it's been for all. If you want to make your own movies, then write your own movies and find the funding and do it yourself. And then bravo, you can go do whatever the hell you want. But you can't do it that way. You got to take the money of the studios.
The thing is, though, if he's all about, I'm about the art, blah, 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 they disrespected the art, blah, 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 which is kind of the feel that I got from this article. Well, if that's the case and you've got morals and principles, fair play to you. Give the money back to the studio. Oh, no, you won't do that, though, because you got paid. You want your cake and eat it, too. Bog off. Oh.
All right, I'm gonna get the rest of you, but let's hop in a bit more, and then I'll come to you next. Can we start at the beginning with Zach? You worked on Bat BVS. Can I assume that was a good experience, at least with him, since you signed on to do another movie? Ben Affleck called me and said that he was working on this film, which was a Superman film, in which he was going to play Batman. So he was asked to read the script and consider doing a rewrite. He asked if I would do some character work, so it was already determined and storyboarded that Batman was going to be trying to kill Superman, and that Batman was going to have gone down a dark road. He was branding criminals, and it had certain dark elements that were non-negotiable and already in the story. So he's talking about what Zach already did, because Zach was already sort of on board getting all this done. What did Affleck want you to do? My job was to create a story and a tone, really, in which Batman could be that person in which two heroes could get to the point where they're fighting to death. So hold on, before I even continue, because this is this interesting part. This feels like a knock at Snyder, if you're asking me. Because it's like Snyder did Man of Steel, and then Snyder went and did BVS and planned it and did everything else and had Justice League prepped and planned. So this dark, crazy version that even Terrio is complaining about, that many fans have said it's too much, he's acknowledging, yeah, no, it's too much. Do you guys get that vibe too?
It sounds like they had two different ideologies of what they wanted for the film, right? So if you watch Batman, Dawn of Justice, Luther plays a lot of God, Jesus themes. There's even a scene of like Clark Kent lying like he's dead on the cross in the film when he's in the debris and everything like that in Dawn of Justice. And then hearing all this stuff about a legal battle and economics and what's going on, that gritty stuff, it's two conflicting stories and concepts of what they wanted this movie to be.
Correct. And so, but he's sort of, even though this article is supposed to be in support of Snyder, I feel like some of these choices he's making and telling us are kind of proving Snyder was wrong. Snyder. And yeah, what did Affleck want you to do? Because even admitting Affleck didn't want to do Snyder's vision. My job was to create a story and a tone, really, in which Batman could be that person in which two heroes could get to the point where they're fighting to the death. What was your approach? I came into thinking that the only way that could work is as a fever dream or as a revenge tragedy. I thought, how do we create a story in which Bruce Wayne is traumatized by the war of Krypton coming to Earth? Okay, well, if he added that part, then kudos to him, because that's the best part of BVS. When she enters into this kind of madness, he becomes Captain Ahab, and he won't listen to saner voices like Alfred, for example, who are telling him just to see reason. He's a man possessed. All right, well, good on him. I support that. That was the best part of the movie. So the film was dark by its nature. As I worked in the movie, it seemed to me that it was a snapshot of what I was feeling on the ground in the country, which maybe didn't become apparent until the madness and division that came about from the last presidency. I thought the superhero movie could be about getting into our worst natures, but then coming out of that into redemption. Now, I'll tell him, this sounds awesome, but I'm sorry. I know some people get this out of BVS, but I don't. I know you probably do, Bunda, but I don't get this from it. But this sounds fantastic, and I wish they would have taken more of Chris's notes then on that theory, because this would have been a clearer approach if they'd focused on that instead of all the so much weird, crazy doomsday Lex Luthor bullshit they did. What did you want to avoid? I didn't want to make it a sitcom joke that Batman and Superman are trying to kill each other. Then why'd you do Martha? Who did Martha? I wish the writer would have asked, but they don't. If I'm going to work on this movie, it's going to be dark and operatic. It's going to be uncomfortable. Zach and I come from very different approaches to filmmaking, but I immediately liked him because he isn't cynical and he wears his heart in his sleeve. I'm cynical enough for any room that I enter into. How did things develop from there? I wrote drafts to be Batman and Superman movie, which wasn't called BVS. I did not name the script. In fact, I found out the movie was called along with the rest of the internet. I was not consulted on the title of the film, and I was surprised as anyone. I would not have named it Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Was that Zach's choice? I don't know exactly who named it, but I suspect it was the studio, and I suspect it was marketing. Bullshit! Marketing decided to pick Dawn of Justice. What the fuck? No way! If that's marketing, they all should be fired. What? No way. Why would Warner Brothers want such a long name? Batman versus Superman, then. Just call it with the S and do it the proper way if you're going to do a proper showdown. I don't believe for a second marketing was like, no, we insist. It must be Batman v Superman, but then colon, and then Dawn of Justice. Come on. That is such a auteur title choice. I don't believe that for a second.
I mean, you got to remember how they were talking about it when this film first came out. What was it, 2017? It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I know what you're going to say, Shannon,
yeah,
but I'm going to interject and tell you, like, listen, us fanboys, if you just said we got a movie called BVS and it's a DC movie, automatically we're sold. We just know that's Batman versus Superman. We don't need anything else. We would have been there. We would have tented up and been intense, waiting out the theaters, and we would have gone there. The whole Dawn of Justice that was them leading into Justice League. That's too much.
Right, and don't you think that was? But don't you guys think that was Zach? Because Zach's the one who's, to me, that feels like Dawn of Justice was a Zach call. It just screams. Looking at all the chapters from Snyder Cut, why would the marketing be like, oh yeah, let's market it on the two biggest names we have, but then let's add Dawn of Justice just to add more words to it. I don't know. That doesn't feel like marketing to me. That feels like, well, no, this is the Dawn of the Justice, so let's BVS fine, but I need to have Dawn of Justice so they know where it's going.
Well, I have a problem with the Batman v Superman title part of this film. There wasn't much of it. You have to wait 2 hours into the freaking film to actually get any Batman v Superman action. And even then, that's the best part of the film, in my opinion. It's over in a freaking flash. The whole title, to me, for that film, doesn't match.
Right, but someone's saying, Andy, you're being don't let Harley Quinn movie with a long ass title. Now, the studio is responsible for the title, agreed. But I'm saying, to me, the emancipation of Harley Quinn, that also feels like a screenwriter choice, like and a studio attempting to like be cool and be like, all right, we'll let you have it. Is to me, that's what it sounds like to me. But yeah, you're right. The studio is equally at fault. But I don't know. That it just doesn't. Neither Birds of Prey, the emancipation of one Harley Quinn, nor BVS sound like the correct marketing choice. And if it is, then yeah, Warner Brothers is the worst and the complete worst marketing team I've ever heard in my life, because those are two of the shittiest titles since The Shawshank Redemption. I mean, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with those two titles, but it's just Dawn of Justice, reading the chapters of Snyder Cut, etc. It just feels like something Snyder would have wanted. But you're right. I'm assuming. I don't know.
You got to look at it too from a business perspective. Like, one of the main problems when they had the Warner Brother layoffs, they mentioned that most of the departments were very siloed and were not communicating with each other. So they probably had a corporate social media team that said the best way to market this is to advertise as Justice League. That's why we're going to throw Wonder Woman in there. That's why we're going to talk about all of this. And they probably had a lame title or something like that. You're talking about 40 people making a decision that maybe one or two people would have come up and had a better one. Usually when you involve more people, it's not as productive. You actually come out with worse ideas.
And just because I see people in the chat, so it wasn't the writer's choice for the title. Well, how do you prove? Show me a link and I'll do it. Lady Justice saying the emancipation part of the title was Margot's idea. Margot Robbie. That's exactly my point. Both of those feel like talent, either a director, a star, or someone like, yeah, no, we want this. Because I don't understand why the studio would have allowed such a long title unless there was someone creatively involved in the film that was sort of pushing for said title. Is why I'm coming to that conclusion. But it's not clear here. So we gotta assume. You guys can assume to disagree. It is what it is. So I don't know who named it, but I suspect the studios. It might have been the first step towards creating ill will for the film. I suspect that putting Batman and Superman in the title had some marketing component. I believe that. I believe someone was like, put Batman and Superman in the title. I don't know where Dawn of Justice came from. And why it was V instead of Versus. Just, if you're going to do it, call it freaking Versus. The V was so stupid. I think you're right that the title did rub people the wrong way. I heard and I thought it just sounds self-important. Yes, and clueless in a way. Tone deaf. The intention of the film was to do something interesting and dark and complex. Not quite as Las Vegas bust-em-up WWE match as BVS Dawn of Justice. Facts. So, I mean, maybe it's not Zach's because he's really roasting it here. And this is quite embarrassing if Zach's reading this and going, dude, that was my title. But he's never going to admit it, but who knows? How did you feel about the version of BVS that was first released? I was proud of the script when I completed it, but it turns out that when you remove the 30 minutes that give the characters motivation for the climax, the film just doesn't work. As we learned from the two versions of Justice League, you can't skip on the character and think the audience will give a shit about the VFX. That stuff was later restored in the extended version, I guess called the Ultimate Edition, remastered. So the house of cards that had been built in order to motivate this clash between America's two favorite heroes made no sense at all. That's what happened with Batman and Superman. The movie was always going to be dark. There was going to be people who didn't want to see that version of a comic book world, and I get that, but what hurt was the criticism that the script was not coherent, because when I turned in the script to the studio, which they, by all accounts, were happy with, it made sense. So I want to unpack that because even the ultimate cut, the movie still has problems. Now, but I'm talking about the fact that he chose to put too many damn characters in the friggin' movie. Like, that's on them. Like, they didn't need to put Wonder Woman and, Doomsday. They didn't need to do all that. They chose to add more, and if anything, they could have cut some of that shit down. So I think the problem is this is my biggest criticism of him, because he's talking about, well, yeah, but they cut out 30 of my pages. Dude, your script was too long. Like, what the hell? Like, how are you an Oscar-winning multi-franchise screenwriter and not realizing, well, shit, you got to make some serious cuts, and you can't add as much as you want because the studio's not going to let you. That's just like, duh. It's just like complete duh to me of like, I don't know what the hell earth he was on where he thought, well, no, we're going to do a 4-hour movie. Now, granted, it's happening now. And he makes a point later. It's like, how are you going to introduce all this in a 2-hour movie? It doesn't make any sense in Snyder Cut and Justice League. He's right in Justice League, especially. But for BVS, it's proving they kept putting too much in. In BVS, all they needed to do was introduce Batman and give us more Superman backstory and focus on them. And then, sure, put in Lex Luthor as sort of the guy who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. Maybe you have Wonder Woman show up as a cameo, surprise at the end, whatever, to fight Lex in some mech suit or something instead of the stupid Doomsday bullshit and all the things they decided to do. But if you really want to focus on the pitch that he had, which I would have been on board with, I think it would have been a 10 times better movie, because we would have gotten more on Man of Steel, right? More to learn about Superman. We would have gotten Batman to have the fight that they wanted to do, and it would have been a better movie. So no, I disagree with him of, well, no, we needed 30 minutes. No, you needed to trim a lot out of your movie already, and you didn't need more, because that was the biggest problem I had with the movie, is you put too much in it. Now, I don't know if that was Snyder who made that call, but that's what's so frustrating me about his excuse here of like, well, no, I should have had more time. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like such a petty, like, well, no, give me 100 more pages. Like, no, at a certain point, the studio tells you have this many pages, Chris, do the fucking job. Do any of you would disagree?
No, I agree. To me, that's the line of the business. Like, you're there for a contract. You're there to meet a goal, not to accomplish for lack of a better term, your dreams. So it's not like the Renaissance period where you'll give an artist a contract and he'll be like, I'm not done to Sistine Chapel. You got to wait until I'm done and then be happy with the result. No, it's nowadays is we want you. If you can't perform the job, we'll get someone else to do the job. That's just how I see it.
I see what you're saying too. Especially bringing up Wonder Woman, because you can compare it to how Black Widow was introduced in Iron Man 2. She was a secretary, barely showed up, did her fight scene as a reveal in the middle, but she wasn't a focus on the film. So that could have been a way to bring in her character without taking up too much screen time, or there's a comparison film to show how it could have been done to save time.
Yeah, it's confusing to me. All of this is confusing to me. All right, I see. I want to take a pause here just to get a couple. Colico, thank you, Colico, for that super chat. BVS should have been 2 films. Agreed. The first one should have ended with them fighting. The second one should have added Wonder Woman and Doomsday and some other baddie. Yes, that's the reality. It's like it's too much movie in one movie. And I don't understand why Chris Terrio's here like complaining that they should have given me more. No, you should have known that the script had too much in it. And you as a screenwriter should have known, all right, to properly do this, we got to make some more cuts and push some of this to Justice League, which is, or like you guys don't have a plan for all these characters. And it is what it is. And maybe that would have been an impossible task. And I think it would have been no matter what, but you took the job and you knew what the job was. And now you're complaining that you couldn't do the job, that you knew the job was going to be trimmed down shit and try to make this cohesive, not add more. You can't. What? It just shows his like creative lack of touch. Of like, don't call me lazy. They took away all my plot, my stuff. No, learn how to write quicker plot stuff. Joss Whedon's pretty good at that. Let's be honest. He is. That's why they probably brought him in, because he has experience doing it for Avengers and other shit. Granted, he had to cut 4 hours down to 2 hours, but that's why they brought him, because they knew he could just fucking roll with the punches and do what they wanted. And in a studio system, sometimes that's what you got to fucking do. So this crybaby nonsense he's doing here after the fact, because the Snyder Cut's seemingly doing well, it rubs me the wrong way. Are you there, special guest? Is that your audio?
Yeah, if you can hear me.
There, we got Undoomed is here, guys. I don't know if you've ever watched Undoomed over on YouTube. He's got a big channel. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're talking Chris Terrio, as you can tell if you've been watching. Undoomed was over on Midnight's Edge, and I invited him if he wanted to pop in. So welcome, man. We're just chilling.
Yeah,
I'm going through this article, and I'm trying to get through it. But yeah, have you been listening? Got a thought on this?
I've been listening off and on. I had to get something to eat before, so I've been hearing most of it, and it's seems like a prissy kind of guy.
Yeah, a little bit. Seems like a prima donna. Let's keep reading, shall we? And then let's get all you guys to chime in. I just want to sort of plow through this so we can get sort of all this excuses out of the way. So Ultimate Edition is what he's talking about next. How the House of Cards has been built in order to motivate this clash between the heroes. Made no sense. So, we did this. What was your relationship with Zach? Good. I have nothing whatsoever bad to say about Zach. He has a skill set that I don't have, a visualist. I would describe him that way too. He's a visualist. He has a contagious excitement that when you describe a scene, he almost can't contain himself, and he just wants to go draw it or paint it. I can tell that too. He feels very distracted at times, to like not focused on the main things, and more like, let's make this cool visual. I totally buy that too. Zach never for a second turned his back on me or doubted my work. After Batman, Superman, any of his Hollywood friends just stopped talking to me because they sort of thought that somehow I was complicit in this very public failure of a studio film. Welcome to Hollywood. You learn pretty quickly who your real friends are and who your air kiss Hollywood friends are, and that's facts. Zach could not have been more supportive and never stopped believing that together we were going to create this big epic DC world. Again, proving the motivations that Zach's always been trying to take over and scorn his enemies over there. How did you feel when that journey ended prematurely? I went into such a depression when the film was taken away and rewritten, but I don't feel entitled to be depressed because Zach obviously went through that tragedy. Measured against that loss, losing the film was nothing, but it did hurt. It hurts when something you care about, these characters, worked on nothing else for a long time. Do you feel that the title and the cuts for length made it harder for people to appreciate things that did work in BVS? That's exactly right. The audience has to know that they're in good hands. The minute that you lose them from a story point of view, they lose the desire to look at the generously. Once the critics decide a movie is incoherent, it's just a pile-on. I think he's right there. It's a valid point. Then they attack everything. There's a line at the beginning of the film where a warlord says to Lois, "They didn't tell me the interview was with a lady." And Lois replies, "I'm not a lady, I'm a journalist." So one reviewer held up this line as a proof positive of my stupidity and my inability to write Lois or to write at all. Well, that character Lois in the movie was inspired by the journalist Marie Colvin, who was, of course, killed in Syria. She was one of the most intrepid journalists who ever lived, in my opinion. There's a story in Vanity Fair, and the line that Lois says is almost exactly that line in the article where a Chechen warlord wouldn't shake her hand because she was a woman. There's no woman in this room, only a journalist. So that line was my tribute to her, but then the pylon, a line like that is held as proof positive that I understand either women or journalists or human beings, and that I'm a shitty writer. I still didn't like the scene. Maybe it's just a bad choice, Chris. He really held this one up, though, didn't he? He really wanted to get this one out of the system.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I think it is Argo is a political film, and all his films that we looked at IMDb has been superheroes after that. Maybe he's just not a comic book writer.
No,
that could be true.
Or a Star Wars
maybe.
writer.
Look at the IMDb. It's all fantasy and fiction, but the only good one is a political drama. And he's talking about that one thing that he's proud about is a political, enticing moment. It's not the same audience. People that love superheroes don't pay attention to every single news article and what journalists are doing in the Middle East. They wouldn't know that.
Right. Well, he sort of sums it up here.
Very true.
It's interesting because he's like he's talking about. So you lost the film people before they saw it. And he goes like, well, yeah, I don't blame them. The marketing promised this mindless fight movie, and any attempt to sort of make something real or complicated was just met with anger and vitriol because the audience just didn't assume good intentions. That's fair. But I mean, what did you expect you were doing? What did you expect the fans to want with BVS? I mean, it's a Batman and Superman movie. Yeah, we want like some badass action sequences if you're going to tout them fighting. Another complaint was the Snyders were too grim and heavy. So this is interesting because he sort of throws Zach under the bus. Studios seem to take this position after BVS that my writing was too dark and that this was their problem. But what they didn't mention was that, for example, in the draft of Batman Superman script that Warner Brothers had developed, with Zach, I assume, right? This had to have been, which was the draft I was handed when I joined the project, which means Zach was on it. Batman was not only branding criminals with a bat brand, he also ended the movie by branding Lex. Jesus Christ. That ending was a point over which I explicitly went to the mat with the studio again and again. I argued that Batman cannot end the movie continuing this behavior, which amounted to torture, because then the movie was endorsing what he did. Now, this is really weird to me, because I'm confused, and anybody in the chat or anybody in the call knows, didn't Zach write the first draft that was handed to Terrio? In which case, isn't he sort of throwing Zach on the bus? And if not, and Warner Brothers was working on the dark approach without Snyder, well, then that gives Snyder such a... suddenly I'm just like, what? That blows my mind because so many people have criticized Snyder for always going too dark with this franchise. Does anybody know or anybody have a thought on that? Or whose fault do you think that was?
I mean, if that was the original script, and I was not a fan of the idea that Batman was branding criminals in the first place. Yeah, if that was, I can see that being in the original script. If that was Zach writing that, and because he's even said it, he's like, in my world, Batman kills people, or he said something along those lines.
Right.
So, and like he envisions a darker world for the Batman character. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Sure, but then they'd have to go the Nolan route, and that's still not that dark, even though the filming is darker. But I don't know. There's some difference there between the realism they present.
Well, no, I agree with that. There's a difference between realism versus just going dark to be dark,
right?
In that sense,
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's you have two people with very contrasting visions that they want to see the movie go in, working together. And I mean, Andy has a point. The more you read this, it doesn't sound like he's bashing the studio, but he's bashing Snyder, because most of BVS, from what I can remember, is very biblical with questions about, if I had the power of a god, what I mean, Lex Luthor wants to almost be better than God by killing a god, which is
right. I mean, those are not wrong questions to ask.
you don't they're questions that are good for a good film, but when you try to do it as a political drama at the same time, it's two different films. It's
Sure.
Which is-
Someone's saying
if you fuck it up, it's even worse. But I mean,
Exactly, yeah.
it's not unreasonable to ask what would be the implication of having Superman, because he is a god. He basically is more powerful than any Greek god you can imagine. He would be God. So it's not unreasonable to ask that question.
Yeah, so just so it's clear, it was David Goyer was there first, who wrote that first draft. But my point is, I still think Snyder. He was working with Snyder on that, since Snyder was in charge of the Snyderverse. This DC verse was still under his control since he did
Right.
Man of Steel. So even though Goyer, who did Man of Steel with him, right, he also did Man of Steel. My point is, yes, Goyer was writing it before he stepped in, and The Dark Knight, et cetera, et cetera. That was still coming from sort of Snyder, with Nolan producing and Snyder's vision coming through, correct? Because I saw some people in the chat correcting me. I want to make sure I'm not incorrect on that, but that's why I'm confused, because you'd think Snyder was okay in helping oversee this vision and okay with it going dark. So this was a combination of Goyer and Snyder. And then Terrio comes in and goes, "Whoa, guys, this is really dark." So maybe it's that's. Let's be fair.
I think this
maybe
was-
it is throwing
yeah.
Goyer more under the bus of like Goyer. What Goyer was trying to do. Maybe Zach didn't want it to be as heavy as Goyer was going. Could be what it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Undoomed.
No, I was just going to say that they probably were on a track from The Dark Knight and all that, where they were really trying to make it dark. They thought that was the winning concept, and as time went on, they saw Marvel, and it's like, holy shit, what are we doing? And that stuff went out of style.
No, you're right. Like, they kept on trying to compete with Marvel, but Marvel earned that moving time. You have 19 movies in the
Yeah,
build-up of Infinity War and that. So you're talking,
and they all have levity,
and you're talking 40 hours of storytelling,
right?
probably, right? And this, they're trying to compete with versions that you haven't earned the character moments or the character beats that they're trying to play here. But from this article, from the way he's talking about it, the fact that you would lose your friends because they don't want to talk to you because a movie did bad, writing's your job. It's just a film. Everyone knows it's just a project. Pick up another project. You would really lose friends in Hollywood for that? That's insane. That's like
Right.
so statistical and shallow with people like that. Like, holy damn.
Oh, that just proves that they weren't real friends in the first place. That's
Oh,
why
man.
that's why you
Yeah.
say
That's
like
Hollywood,
the friends
though.
with the air kisses.
Yeah.
You know?
It'd
That's
be like
Hollywood in
if I walked into your job going, you did a really bad day at work, kid. I fucking hate your guts, and then walk away. I'm like,
I don't know if you went over this, but I got to ask, like, who wrote the Martha line?
It's a good question. Look, I mean,
Tell
I
me
think
that's in the article.
somebody help me figure that out, or somebody look it up while I'm going through. But I was going to say, to me, the more I think about it, this is clearly a shot at Goyer, is what I think he's trying to do here. Because everyone's like, well, Andy, Zach doesn't write it. I know Zach didn't write it, but guys, Zach does all the story beats. He storyboards comic books before he goes into these things. And you gotta understand, when you make a movie like this, the previs is all done before you're even done the script and you're in shooting. They got all those effect scenes and big CGI battles. They do all, like, that's happening right now for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 before the movie's even anywhere near shooting. They have to have like a year and a half in advance of prepping all those big battles and things that they do, which you bet your ass Zack Snyder was involved in sort of helping the tone and story beats and things that are happening. Sure, he's not writing the script and doesn't get credit for it, but after Man of Steel especially, you'd think he was heavily involved with Goyer as to what the plan would be for BVS. So even a knock at Goyer, I just can't imagine this wasn't also a slight knock on Snyder. But I just want to try and brush through this so we can talk more freely with everybody, because I want to make sure I didn't forget any of this since I'm clipping this. So he's trying to make this idea that, you know, he wasn't the reason why it was so dark. So, and his argument was, if it's one thing if Batman begins the movie as a dark version of himself who we don't recognize, but he has to see the error of his ways and remember his better self in the course of the movie. By the end of the movie, he needs to be the Batman we know, and he has to be ready to go create the Justice League. Otherwise, what's the point? He's right there. What else did you push back against? I'm the one who had been saying that we can't make a joke about Superman raining hell upon black African Muslim characters in the desert. What? As Lois promises, Superman is not going to go easy on them because they punched her, but somehow I'm the person with the dark sensibility. I wanted to say I've been saving you from yourselves. I've been working with the director to bring a voice of consciousness, insanity, the almost perversely dark film you've been developing for years, but I'm the problem here. I mean, how is this not a shot at Snyder? How is this not a shot at Snyder? I mean, Goyer, Snyder, but right? I mean, clearly this was Snyder's involvement that this was happening, and now he's like the voice of conscious sanity to the almost perversely dark film you've been developing for years. I mean, is that not a shot to imply Zack was developing this for years?
Sounds like it.
It's so weird.
Maybe Zack Snyder really wanted to make the live action version of Invincible, and
maybe I think he does. They talk about this thing. I removed the punch of Lois for one thing. Just think about the optics of that. I was able to have material to film and ask the movie to grapple with what the battle meant, so it didn't seem like this casual scene of Superman intervening in this way without reckoning with the consequences of intervention. I placed that in context of a moral question. Superman says, "Think of what could have happened," and Lois says, "Think of what you did." Blah blah blah. After they explain that they then added this character from the DC testimony to try and justify all this stuff. So you're pushing back against all these scenes, and you're saying that the studio wanted these things, but you also had to convince Zack. So right. So was Zack Snyder open to these kind of criticisms? When I would talk to Zack about these things, I think he got it. We discovered that we were on the same page, and that he loved the idea of the scene in Congress with this African woman describing the consequences in her village. He was right away sparked to that. We got excited about casting that character. Thought we could quickly, that could be a very important character for the movie. So Zack was open to a lot of the stuff. I thought the studio was too. They're talking about this scene. Why weren't they? Later, when I realized that so much of the plot was going to be cut out, which was like, duh, what'd you think was going to happen? You thought it was going to be a 3-hour movie. I began to think, well, they didn't really want this kind of story. The last thing to get cut are the stunt scenes and the special effects scenes because they cost so much. But by the time they're all in there and the assembly, enormous amounts of money have already been spent on every frame. Facts. You'd think you'd know that as an Academy Award-winning screenplay who already was writing one. So when you're looking to cut time, the things that get cut tend not to be the big effects. Duh. Sequences or fights. The things that got cut are the nuance. Yes, the scenes that actually give meaning to those bigger action sequences. I think that's the problem not only with this film, but I suppose all tentpole films. No shit, Sherlock. What the fuck is this? What an idiot. That's why I'm so annoyed by this. Well, they didn't give me another hour to do all the nuance because they spent all the money on the effects that I knew were going to be in the movie. Given your concerns about BVS, why did you sign on for Justice League? I agreed to write Justice League because I wanted the chance to write these characters with love and hope after getting through the darkness of BVS. The end of my version of BVS includes Bruce seeing the error of his ways and promising to change. It's the return of consequence after an ethical nightmare, and in Justice League, Bruce does do better. After BVS, critical reaction was negative. It was underwhelming. What was the atmosphere? There was a mood of fear at the studio. No doubt my impression was that people in boardrooms started making the decisions, and they were decisions based on arbitrary metrics that had nothing to do with the stories that were being told. So they weren't racist. That's good to hear too. What gave you that sense? Right before the time of Batman Superman, I was asked to attend an event in New York. The filmmakers were paraded in front of a room of investors at Time Warner, I guess to convince them their money was in good hands. These guys were in charge because they controlled the money at the very top of the pyramid scheme. They were making big decisions, not the film executives we're talking about, but Wall Street guys. One guy I can only describe as someone Central Casting would cast as the douchebag. Jesus. Pulled me aside and started telling me how to write Batman. Oh my God, I hate this guy. I'm not naive. I know that if you don't want to have any back and forth money people, then you should write poetry because you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. But something about the distribution of power at that time just seemed off to me. It was removing even the pretense that capital wasn't calling the shots. Who the fuck you think is calling the shots? And a big budget tentpole IP like that. What impact do these studio tensions have when you're writing? I rewrote Justice League to lighten the mood, which became the Zack Snyder Justice League. That slightly lighter, less dense version of the script, which I was fine with. I'm sane. I will play ball with those kinds of notes. Sure, I hope so. I think we're almost done here. So Zack shot your version. What happened after the family crisis led him to leave? When the movie was taken away, it felt like some directive that had come from people who were neither filmmakers nor film-friendly. The directive to make the movie under 2 hours. We know about this. And they wanted to make it brighter, more funny sitcom jokes. It was Kevin Tesora made that note. Yes, I heard that too. I never had any direct with him. As far as I can tell, the very brass at the top decided the order of the films. I was not consulted consulted on the order of the films, even though I was the person writing Justice League. They just determined that it was going to be Batman and Superman, and then Wonder Woman, then Justice League, and then Aquaman. So there was never any thought to how the world was constructed before they issued the edict. They said conform to the schedule. Now, I believe this. I totally believe this, and this was definitely part of DC's problem, and is the easiest finger to point at the fact, well, what the hell? Why would you just dictate, yeah, we'll do this, and then we'll do Aquaman? And then it gets even worse. The Wonder Woman script wasn't even finished when I wrote Justice League, so I had no basis to write Wonder Woman other than Batman and Superman. Themyscira didn't exist. I was never shown anything on a page for it. I didn't know whether people could talk underwater. I always thought that was weird. Remember in he shows up in BVS and they have those weird bubbles? Because apparently they didn't know what the fuck they were going to do in Aquaman yet. I didn't know whether people could talk underwater. That was a thing I had to ask because I didn't know if I could do underwater scenes with Aquaman and the Atlanteans. It was just all from scratch because there had been no solo character films. So Justice League needed to establish 3 of the characters. It had to create a long game mythology for the DC Universe. It had to resurrect Superman because he was dead, which you didn't have to do. And I don't know how you could do all that in under 2 hours. Maybe the 2017 release proved you couldn't. Pausing there. So this is all important because I agree with him on all of this. But to me, it also just points the problem of, well, what did you expect? You're the one who wrote BVS that set up the tone that killed Superman, then expected to keep going. Why the fuck didn't he try to, rein it in earlier or fight Snyder to say, dude, we got to cut some of this shit? Well, don't you think the studio at that point would be yes, please, cut some of these characters and do it? This just seems like a creative... Nobody was in control, which then apparently even ideas weren't in control. It just is, to me, all this article he's writing about is just proving even more of what a mess it was. Let me go around, and since I've been talking a lot, I want to get each of your... Steph, you haven't talked in a bit. Thoughts on any of this that you're reading?
Well, I just thought of the fact that they have fish people talk in the new one.
They do. They do. But hold on. Steph. Go, Steph.
The only one thing that's kind of running in my mind at the moment is why? Why is he doing this article? To what end? To what purpose does this serve? I don't get it. Is he doing it because he's had a run of proper shitty films that he's just trying to put out there that it wasn't his fault so that he can be hired for future films? That's the only thing that I'm getting from this. And he's throwing everyone that he can think of under the bus to try and escape from the fact that ultimately, when it comes down to it, he's a screenwriter. He put the freaking words on the paper that they then ultimately followed, creating shitty films.
Not a bad take. Adon?
I'm seeing a lot of excuses and
we need shots, I think, for your... we need those birthday shots.
Listen, I'm just going to say it. My pop used to have a saying, excuses are like butts. Everybody got them.
He's got a
That's
bunch.
the cleanest way I could say it.
I think he's got a few butts on this. Shannon, thoughts?
So this part makes me feel like Office Space, where the manager is the studio going, I'm going to need you to be more like Marvel, okay?
It's true.
Because it's just that everything that they were trying to do almost sabotages creativity, because the reason Marvel did so well, especially with early Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the first ones before the Avengers teamed up, was they didn't have typical screenwriters write it. They had screenwriters that loved the material, that loved comic books, that loved what they were writing, so that they knew how to balance serious tone with comedic aspects, because that's what a comic book is. A comic book reflects politics in satire through different means. Like DC is very gods, and Marvel is very science and nuclear, and people are flawed and things like that. Those are the two parallels of what they're doing. So this guy goes, well, here's my formula. We read the data. According to the data, to capture people that are 18 to 49, we should really resonate on these themes instead of hiring people that loved Batman, that loved Superman, that know the Flash, that know Teen Titans, that know the different versions of Cyborg, because Cyborg in Doom Patrol is amazing. I don't know if anyone watches the show Doom Patrol. It's on HBO.
I like it. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and it's written by people that love the material and love comics, and you can tell the differences of the storytelling here, and it just seems like it was all pulled out. And I even talked about earlier that this guy, he's a politics writer, and he tried doing fiction, but I don't think he's skilled in that balance So instead of kind of taking ownership of that, where he could improve and what he could have done differently, it's just.
Yeah, and Vito said in the chat, "Hey, what's up, Vito? If you want to come in, you can let me let me know. You don't have to; you can chill." But he was saying a point I just saw. He's killed 2 franchises now between the Justice League and Star Wars. Like, I think you're right, Steph. This is damage control because Snyder Cut's doing okay. It's doing well for a lot of people. A lot of people are fans of it. I see people in the chat, and the reality is, I think he's trying to use this wave to sort of point. See, it was the studio's fault at the time. Undoomed, any other thoughts before I want to read this next bit, but did you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to add that I think it's probably a mistake to just go out and blame people. I think he would have been much better served by just shutting the fuck up.
I don't disagree. And it doesn't help anybody, you know? It's like,
yeah,
no one wants to work with somebody who's just going to open up and talk shit about everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
You're totally spot on. And welcome, Stormy. What's up, Stormy? She's setting up her audio. Welcome to the show. As you set up your stuff, I'm going to read the next paragraph as you get your thing working. So this was interesting, guys. Studio co-presidents John Berg and Jeff Johns were on the Justice League set every day, which was a mandate from Sahura to babysit Snyder, as he put it. What was your relationship with them? Look, I admire Jeff as a writer of DC Comics. He's been nice to me. He's been perfectly cordial relationship. Wow. I didn't expect him to back up Jeff. As an executive, you get into very thorny territory when you have a person who's a writer who's also is making executive decisions and sitting in the chair where other films, on other films, the writer would have been. So I think it's miraculous that Zach shot as much of my script as he did, because I know that there was constant pressure to simplify, to change, to do whatever it is that the studio wanted, because there were rumblings they didn't want this version. This is so telling me because twofold. He's not throwing Jeff Johns on the bus, which I would have expected him to do given the Ray Fisher stuff. And Zach, everyone just assuming Jeff was the monster there, but he's acknowledging Jeff allowed Zach to get all the shit he wanted shot. So as much as annoying or whatever Jeff was doing to try and tank the film, at the end of the day, he got it shot, right? Jeff was there and allowed Zach to get the things done. So he's acknowledging that. So kudos for that. But I love also this second thing of like the studio just didn't want this version that Zach wanted. And so to me, like, that only reaffirms what I was saying earlier of BVS and all the problems in the darkness was all the version back then that Chris is responsible for and still like was trying to fix and just clearly didn't fix enough. So to me, it's telling of he's defending Jeff, and I still think throwing Zach a bit under the bus. Did you have any interactions with the actors? I wasn't invited to set, but obviously I know Ben. I got to know Ray. We developed Cyborg together. Ray came to my apartment. He and I would just take long walks about Cyborg. That's why that never happens, guys. Never happens for a screenwriter and an actor to like sit there and rewrite especially someone new, to write the scene. So no wonder Cyborg was being like lifted up so much that I feel like it just, I guess to his credit, they were just sort of putting all this ahead of like how big this was going to be, and he's involved creatively, which is why you don't tend to do that with your actors as this often, because when a cut happens, then they get more upset. But they talk about how this was a lot of responsibility, putting the black DC superhero on the movie screen. This was before Black Panther. Obviously, there had been some black superheroes, but none depicted with such a budget and such a scale in a mainstream way. And I think that is a valid thing that they all should have taken a little bit more seriously. Cyborg is the one character who can't disguise himself. He lives in his skin. His otherness is a constant fact of his life. And that, to me, Ray and I discussed this, speaks about being a black man in America. You cannot remove the otherness that people force upon you, and therefore Cyborg, when he becomes the hero that he always should have been, was meant to be, that he felt like something really strong that we wanted the world to see. Did any other performers consult with you? I talked to Jeremy Irons. I had a correspondence with Gal, who would write me and say, this doesn't seem quite right for the character. What do you think? And it was all really good relationship where all the roles would be bespoke to the actors. When the Snyders left the project, that was the end of your involvement. That's right. I would only hear occasional reports about the reshoot. I didn't realize how much of the film was going to be changed or vandalized, in my opinion. It became clear as I spoke that there was a wholesale dismantling of what had been there before. No, it's just a tightening. It was really just a tightening because they had to make a 2-hour movie, which Zach knew before we left. I didn't hear from anyone who said it was a pleasant experience. Were you hearing anything about Joss Whedon? I probably shouldn't get into that. I've never met Joss. I don't know him. I did reach out to him at the beginning, though, through executives. I didn't hear back, which is not unusual. So we also didn't throw Joss Whedon under the bus. When you did watch this version of Justice League, I was in LA working on Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, which we'll get to. I was on the West Side working with JJ, and I drove the studio, and I sat down and watched a couple weeks before release. I immediately called my lawyer and said, I want to take my name off the film. The lawyer then called Warner Brothers and told them that I wanted to do that. Why didn't you? Prints had already been struck on hard drives, burned, or however they deliver movies. The elements were on their way, and to remove my name, they would have had to restrike the prints or redo digital copies, and the film could be delayed. It would have been an international scandal and a news story, so I shut up, and I said nothing publicly. I've never said anything about Justice League since then, but the movie doesn't represent my work. What happened after that, as far as I know, I wasn't invited to the premiere, and I never watched the film again. Why
didn't he speak? He's got so much strong opinion about this. Why didn't he speak up back then?
So here's why he says, I think it would have created he says right here, look, I think it would have created a whole wave of negative publicity that I would have he's right. That would have made the situation even worse for the actors and all the craftspeople who had worked on it. For all kinds of people, but I'm awfully happy that Zach's cut is one that's higher on my IMDb page. But he's got a point. If he was out there saying the screenwriter 2 weeks before release is suing to get his name off the script, it's a very selfish decision. It might have been the wise decision, but it would have tanked the movie. That would have been terrible press for everybody else involved in the movie. And it seemed like everyone was just hoping maybe it'll work. Who knows? But doing that 2 weeks before release would have made Terrio look like a complete scumbag. I do see why he's stuck there.
Fair enough.
Something that was big and prominent then, so widely derided, it kind of poisons your reputation, doesn't it? Yeah, it hurts your reputation, but more importantly, it poisons your soul and your confidence, especially when this other version of the film wasn't seen. And now that it has been seen, people do have problems with this version of the film, and they'll quibble with the length, and they'll quibble with the way certain characters are written, but that I can take, because that is actual critique of my work. All right, good. That's fair game, and I'll engage with that any day. People can quarrel with the movie, but at least they're quarreling with my version and with Zach's version of the movie. Do you feel like they were deliberately making you a scapegoat? Deeply paranoid, so I'm always assuming that everyone's out for me. Justice League Snyder version is the only script other than Argo that I have a sole writer credit on. I really did develop this, so I can stand by this version, love it or hate it. He's not working on anything else, and they don't talk about Star Wars. All right, so there. I just wanted. Sorry. I know it was a longer article, but I wanted to make sure I at least got through so we could start talking about this and then move on to other topics. But panel, now that I've gotten it all out there, again, my take is just more of just like frustration of. I think he does have some points. Like I do think it's interesting to hear his side, but I do think it sounds a little sour grape still, and just sort of like proves to me he doesn't know how to write a blockbuster tentpole. And maybe that's why he came forward, because he's not going to get any of those again, especially since Rise of Skywalker also underperformed and didn't do well. I don't know. There's a lot of people who managed to still get big projects, but you'd think studios would be a little worried to bring in Terrio after the Snyder movies and then Rise of Skywalker. But this is clearly damage control. I think you're right, Steph. This is clearly like a move of him trying to seem like, hey, I tried to push back and make the movie great. I know how to write, guys. It's not my fault. But all I see is, I needed more pages. I needed more time. You guys didn't give me enough time. And that, to me, shows his lack of experience of understanding how to make a tentpole blockbuster. But let's go around the bend. Stormy, welcome to the show. Anything you want to add or say since you're back? Good to see you.
You too. So he's responsible for Rise of Skywalker?
Yep.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay, well then he's dead to me. He is dead to me. That's enough said. I don't want to hear anything else he said. Right when I saw Rise of Skywalker, I was like, you know what? You're dead.
He wrote, so here's what he wrote, just so you see it. If you're just, he did Argo. He won an Oscar for Argo, which was,
okay, I'll give him that.
That was that was a good one. I liked it too. And then he did Batman v Superman, which we just discussed his problems with the movie. And then he did Justice League, which he wanted his name off of it. And then he did Rise of Skywalker. And then he was a sole screenwriter on Justice League, the new one. So that's his filmography, for those of you who just tuned in.
He's dead to me. He is dead to me. So I'm done. I'm done.
Stick to your guns.
Done.
Shannon, go ahead.
I'm done with him.
Shannon, what did you want to say?
There's Justice League Part 2? What?
I think that's
2.0.
I think it's wishful thinking. The IMDb does that a lot.
Okay, because I'm confused. Like, I loved the Snyder Cut, but it's good for a streaming platform. Like, streaming services have different ways to tell storytelling, because you can pause it and go to the bathroom and pause it, do your work, go back to it. And with the Snyder Cut, since it's broken in 6 chapters, it's a good mini series for a streaming platform. I would not have watched this in a theater. I think for the most part, I don't know why he's writing this if he said he was concerned about being sued earlier. Are those concerns gone now? Like, what if people go after him about this opinion in this article?
I mean, he didn't say. I don't think he said anything slanderous. It's all his opinion on the movies being bad. You can't sue for defamation regarding that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me, but I think
it just seems
trouble.
weird. Like he could have come out a couple months afterwards.
I mean, I think it just shows I'm sure he had a lawyer. He's talked to a lawyer before he did it, so I'm sure he's fine. But to me, he's riding the wave of Snyder Cut before it dips out, which I think it's going to start doing pretty quickly. It's beginning to, before it becomes a blip in everybody's radar. I know Snyder fans don't want me to say that, but let's be real. As soon as it sort of ends, this isn't relevant anymore. So I think this is the time where he can sort of rally the fan base, to restore the Snyderverse people, and try and do something good to his name. Because I'm sure a lot of industry people read this to sort of doubt, well, should we hire Terrio? It's probably a question around town of does he warrant it? And so this article will probably turn some people to say no. It could turn someone to say yes. He's sort of screwed, I think, either way. But who knows? Steph, anything you want? I'm just going around the bend before make sure I get everybody, and then I'm going to read some super chats. Steph, did you have a comment?
I think he is screwed either way. I mentioned earlier on that I think this is a misguided attempt at damage control, because Hollywood's either going to look at his filmography and be like, shit films, or they're going to look at this article and be like, okay, so we've basically got a movie writer that'll speak out against us and the studio and all this malarkey. Nah. So either way, I think he's screwed and he shouldn't have done this. This is like the final nail in the coffin for his career, as far as I can see.
Adon?
I mean, two things. One, he was wrong about the whole first pivotal black character in DC Comics to hit movies. Come on, man. He forgot Shaq and Steel. Cyborg is not more important than Shaq and Steel. I'm just sorry. I'm going to put that out there. That's a golden gem. Watch that, Stefania. I'm put it on your list of movies.
Okay. I have seen Shaq in Steel once, and that's all it's needed. But you've got a good point in Blade as well.
That's all that's ever needed. Anyways, I digress. No, listen. There's a lot of he's trying to put up band-aids. He's hurting either way. In all honesty, there's no easy way to say this. He's writing projects that are way too long. They could have been easily trimmed down. I looked up a list of movies that are like 4 hours plus, and only like a handful of them are movies I remember that are memorable movies for like a lifetime. Other than that, dude, you gotta trim it up. You're better off just trimming it up, doing the job that they're asking for, and then having a good resume. Not having a resume that you're going to be like, they didn't go by my dream, and now that's why my resume doesn't look as good as it is.
Well said. I want to go on Doom before I do. Adon, just I'm let you know, I finally got, while you were talking, I got my tequila, so I got my shot ready for your birthday, because in an hour and 20 minutes, Adon's birthday is here, and I'm going to spend this next hour. After this stupid article, I want to get shit-faced with you, so we're going to do it. So anybody else who wants to, or drink soda, whatever, no pressure, but get ready, guys. And then we're on Doomed. What did you want to add? If you have
no, I just thought that, if he's saying that his version is that much better, is he saying that this 4-hour movie is what he wanted? Because if it is, that's not viable. You can't just do a 4-hour movie. That's crazy.
Well, it's interesting because
he stands by this movie.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that, because that's where I'm stuck. It's like, and Shannon, you said you love Snyder Cut. Good, I'm glad. I wish I did. Where I'm stuck is like, man, if I was gonna make a 4-hour Justice League, I knowing that ahead, like, let's do a 4-hour Justice League miniseries. I'm even more disappointed by Snyder Cut, because I feel like, I don't know, like I've seen better 4-hour miniseries. It's just like I feel like you should have then made it tighter, like still tighter, and figured out and like gotten more out of it. I still feel like that is a format that now exists in the world of streaming. Okay, fine. But 4-hour Justice League should have been even, I don't know, it just should have been even better. I think
it felt like there was a lot of scenes of people just walking upstairs that were just in there because, we had that footage.
Well, or it was there was a lot of stuff he felt like he kept because he's like, well, we have it now, so put it back in there. And it feels like Terrio's like, this is all character buildup. But I don't know, there still was a lot that could have been trimmed in that movie. It took him forever to get to Aquaman's town. It was like, I get it. Okay, he scaled the mountains. He's Batman. I don't need to see it happening. I like Batman just appearing and disappearing. Like, I get it. But the Snyder Cut just decided to like show it all in a way where it's like, come on, for a 4-hour movie with the best heroes in the world. Yeah, it was fun.
It felt like he was going for extra length for the sake of extra length.
Did you feel that way, Shannon, or anybody else who liked it on the panel?
So for me, I think one reason why this film works so well was because we're in the pandemic.
Sure.
I would not have seen this if it was in theaters.
Right.
And I would not have liked it as much if it was in theaters. It's because of the fact that we stay at home and we don't have a lot of content now, and things will come out in these blocks. What I do like about the Snyder Cut is the fact it does break it up into chapters, and it felt like I was kind of reading The Dark Knight Chapter 1 or Watchmen Chapter 1, actually Dark Knight split into parts. I read that a while ago, but Watchmen was split into chapters, and each chapter broke a little bit into what was going on in the comic book world, and each one felt like its own separate piece and not a movie. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like a visual graphic novel that works because it's a streaming platform. So I can see them going with a odd creative choice that wouldn't have worked for a blockbuster or a big release.
Sure.
Any other final thoughts before we move on to the next and I start taking shots?
On that positive end, the thing, we all need to get drunk.
Well, technically in the UK,
knock yourself out.
Now.
It's,
Happy birthday, Dan.
you get to say it first. There you go. I don't drink as much on the stream or in general, but for Don, I'm gonna do some shots for you guys. Plus, we owe the chat one because we told him we would. All right, so hold on. I realized I didn't tweet out that we're. There we go. Shots. I just tweeted out that we're drinking shots for you. Maybe that'll bring even more viewers in. All right, here we go. So let me trim this for YouTube. This is a long one, but there you go. You got the full Terrio interview. If you made it all this way, wow. Tell me, I made it all this way. I can't believe it in the comments down below if you're watching on the replay. Make sure you subscribe to everybody. Undoomed over on YouTube. Stormy, Shannon, do you have anything you want to plug?
Not plugging anything, but I got to hop off soon since I got to get up at 5.
Oh, God. So. Do it. Do what we got to do. Hold on. Don't yet. Stormy, Hugging the Cactus. We can. Stormy's been helping me over Hugging the Cactus. She's been helping me.
Please like and subscribe to Hugging the Cactus, please. We have some wonderful pieces that are coming out in the future. I'm excited. And then Steph's over at Planet of the Nerds. Go support her over there. The links are always in my description and on my channel page. Go support the Planet of the Nerds where she's streaming, watch a girl reacting to stuff. And then Don over at Nerd Tots. We'll be hyping that all night, so stay tuned. All right, clipping this for YouTube. If you're watching live, don't go anywhere. We're not done. But for those of you on the replay, what'd you miss? Hit that join button and become a member. You always catch the replays and a lot of other exclusive streams and watch parties only here.